Hey everybody, how's it going? Today, let's take a detailed look at the iconic DeLorean DMC-12. And this is going to be a detailed, in-depth review of the DeLorean. We'll start it up, show the engine, get an exhaust clip and go over the performance data, as well as show you a bunch of the unique aspects of the interior, as well as exterior.
And before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to extend a special shout out and big thanks to Arcade Motors, located in Charlotte, North Carolina, for extending the invite and allowing me to come out and film this beautiful DeLorean DMC-12.
And so, without further ado, let's go and start her up. Let it run.
From the factory, the DMC-12 was designed with a glass reinforced plastic underbody cloaked in grade 304 brushed stainless steel panels that were guaranteed not to chip, fade, or blemish. Opening the large gull-wing doors reveals a leather-lined interior that could be had in two different color schemes, either gray leather like we have here, or black leather.
Beautiful.
The DeLorean came standard with speed proportional rack and pinion steering that was not power assist and a 3-spoke leather wrap steering wheel with your horn located in the stalk to the left.
And as far as the gearbox, there's actually two different optional transmissions. A 5-speed overdrive manual, or this particular one's optional 3-speed automatic for a little bit more convenience, not to mention low gear selection. Plus you gotta love the angular 80s shift knob, blend into a matching stainless steel housing. Now while the DeLorean does have power windows, the majority of the window is actually fixed, one of its signature styling cues. The only mobile portion is that partition under the black section. The window switches are located in the center console, and your locks and power mirrors are located on the door right above your handle. And we'll go ahead and flip on the headlamps. In order to do so, this button located in the center stack here, you press it once for parking lamps, twice for your headlamps, and a third time to turn it off. Not to mention your hazards. And of course, we can't forget to flip on the flux capacitor. So, let's go ahead and check out the exterior, shall we?
Few cars this day and age are as instantly recognizable as the DeLorean DMC-12. From its signature stainless steel body and gull-wing doors, to its blockbuster debut in the Back to the Future trilogy as Doc Brown's homemade time machine. While immortalized in film, its history and development from dream to production is not only interesting, but short-lived after only just 2 years of production. Of course, you can't talk about the car without its creator, John Zachary DeLorean. DeLorean had an illustrious career in the automotive industry, not only as an engineer, but in management as well. After earning his engineering degree from the Chrysler Institute in 1952, he worked as an engineer for the company for a brief period of time before migrating to Packard and eventually becoming the head of research and development. He then later was offered an engineering job with General Motors before settling down with the Pontiac division. He started out as an assistant engineer before being promoted to chief engineer of Pontiac in 1961. Over the years, he would be responsible for the development of iconic 1960s muscle cars like the Pontiac GTO, Firebird, and an all-new Grand Prix for 1969. Not to mention many design and safety innovations such as an overhead cam 6-cylinder, wide track styling, recessed windshield wipers, lane change turn signals, the Enduro bumper, and much more. After being promoted to head up GM's flagship Chevrolet division, he worked for a few years turning record sales, introducing new models, and enhancing production quality, before being promoted yet again to Vice President of Car and Truck Production for all GM brands. DeLorean was a creator and innovator and desired the freedom that corporate structure restricted. Taking that into consideration, he actually resigned from General Motors in 1972 to chase his dream of creating his own car company, which would later be known as the DeLorean Motor Company, established in 1975. Bill Collins, who joined DMC as their chief engineer after a 16-year history with Pontiac, described that the new company was to create a market where being unique was a virtue. After consulting with various designers, it was Giorgetto Giugiaro of Italia Design who first came up with the winning style, in addition to seamless integration of modern safety measures. Giugiaro was responsible for many iconic cars over the years, including the Lotus Esprit and other exotic marques. While the first prototype came out in October 1976, production wouldn't begin until 1981 for a variety of engineering and budget factors. The original car's chassis was originally supposed to be constructed using a very new and innovative process known as elastic reservoir molding that would yield more cost-effective lightweight reinforced plastic components with great energy absorption. Through layers and combination of resin, fiberglass, and open cell foam, this process would allow impact forces to be spread across the material. It could then be layered in thicker sections as needed. ERM was later dropped due to the engineering complications and a tight schedule in favor of more conventional lightweight material. Originally, the running prototype came with a Citroën 4-cylinder, while a Ford engine and even a rotary was considered before settling on the PRV V6, but more on that later. In addition, while the DeLorean was originally scheduled to be built in Puerto Rico, a sizable investment from the Northern Ireland Development Agency would lead to the relocation of the DMC plant to Dunmurry, Ireland, just outside of Belfast. For the production cars, DeLorean turned to Lotus for engineering and construction. The original ERM body concepts were abandoned in favor of an alternate compound developed by Lotus known as glass-reinforced plastic, and also made at the DMC factory via a process known as vacuum-assisted resin injection, which draws the resin in evenly into all areas of a pre-designed mold. These molds form the two-piece underbody that are then joined together during assembly, forming the central monocoque. With the GRP structure, polyurethane foam was also incorporated into sections for reduced noise, vibration, and harshness and increased safety. After assembly of the body, it was then cloaked by the stainless steel panels, which were guaranteed not to corrode for at least 25 years. They bolted onto the body for ease of replacing or refinishing. Simple cleaning and polishing could be done with mild degreasers and a non-metallic Brillo pad to prevent metal particles from sticking and corroding on top of the body. Body work such as dents and dings were the real challenge with the unpainted surface, and so it was thought to simply replace the panel if damaged. The GRP monocoque is actually mounted on top of a Lotus Esprit-derived double-wide backbone chassis at 10 mounting points. The chassis features boxed steel and integrated subframes for the suspension and rear-mounted engine, rather than having a separate subframe that could be mounted to the chassis. This in turn increased the torsional rigidity for the vehicle. The chassis was then finished with a fusion-bonded epoxy to prevent corrosion of the steel. Even the exhaust was stainless steel for continued longevity. The DeLorean styling can only be truly appreciated in person. While designed to cut through the wind and having a coefficient of drag of just 0.35, it also had a unique stance that was unlike any conventional domestic car of the day. The only plastic body parts of the exterior cover the front and rear clips, which were painted silver to match the steel. The louvers across the engine do two things. They create a nice block for the sun when it's behind you, but also help carry hot air out of the engine bay. Glass behind the B-pillars give the appearance of a roomy hatch, while in reality, storage is found under the boot in front. Even the dynamic wheel arches reflect the asymmetric wheels. With larger, wider wheels in the rear, the fender flares actually project out more from the body. Gull-wing doors were also an engineering challenge by themselves, but are a great convenience when in tight spaces, as they only need 11 inches to open out from the body. To counter the heavy doors, cryogenically preset torsion bars were used along with gas-charged struts. But one of the most quirky designs are the side glass and partial power windows like you saw earlier. It was actually designed that way on purpose due to the bend and sharp angle of the door. The large glass panel would not have been able to roll down far enough into the door panel to make it feasible. Overall, as far as model differences, not a whole lot changed between 1981 and 82, aside from some styling tweaks inside and out. Early cars have a grooved hood as well as a built-in fuel door with locking gas cap. The fuel door was actually later removed in favor for the more streamlined hood and having the gas cap within the boot. The grooves also disappeared, while the DeLorean script was added to the edge of the hood. Now another neat thing, DMC-12 obviously stands for DeLorean Motor Company, but the 12 represents what they thought the original base price was going to be, $12,000. In reality, it actually ended up being around double that. Overall length is 168 inches with a width of 78.3 inches and a height of 44.9 inches. Total curb weight was a manufacturer-claimed 2,840 pounds. The DeLorean came standard with asymmetric, thin-spoke, painted aluminum alloy wheels measuring 14 by 6 inches in front and wrapped in 195/60 all-season tires, while the larger 15 by 8 inch rear wheels are wrapped in meatier 235/60 tires. Brakes consist of 4-wheel vacuum-assisted power disc brakes measuring 10 inches in front and 10.5 inches in the rear that were tested to bring the vehicle to a stop from 60 miles an hour in 158 feet. The DeLorean's fully independent suspension also takes inspiration from the Lotus Esprit and also features coil springs and telescopic shock absorbers. Up front, it features a double wishbone setup with unequal length A-arms, in addition to a multi-length rear with semi-trailing arms and upper-lower lateral arms. As mentioned, while the Lotus design setup rode lower in the front, it was raised for production cars, causing larger wheel gaps and actually hurt the car's handling profile. Many people over the years have since corrected their cars back to the original intended height. Gaining access to the engine bay is a two-step process as there's two separate engine bay covers. First, pull out the louvers by pulling on that little handle there. It automatically gets supported by gas-filled struts. Then, reach behind the driver's seat and pull the main latch for the hood release. Pull up the secondary hood, and you notice there's a little bar down there, which you'll push in, it'll click and lock, so both of them are supported up in this position. The production DeLorean featured a PRV V6, otherwise known as Peugeot, Renault, and Volvo. It's an all-aluminum, 2-valve per cylinder single overhead cam, 90-degree 2.85-liter V6, also shared with the Renault 30, Volvo 264, and Peugeot 604. It was built in northern France under contract from DeLorean and shipped to the assembly plant in Ireland. The gearbox and transaxle were also PRV designed and assembled at the Renault facility in Normandy, France. The challenge, since it was typically a front-engine application, was if DeLorean decided to make a mid-engine car, it would intrude on passenger space and make servicing key bits quite difficult. Therefore, they went with the rear-engine design by turning the engine around, flipping the ring gear over on the other side of the pinion to correct rotation of the drive shaft. It was also fitted with Bosch K-Jetronic fuel injection and featured a compression ratio of 8.8 to 1. While originally supposed to produce 150 horsepower, due to emissions and catalytic converter restrictions, the PRV V6 produced 130 horsepower at 5,500 RPM and 162 pound-feet of torque at 2,750 RPM. This translated to 0 to 60 times of 10.5 seconds and quarter-mile times of 17.9 seconds at 76.5 miles per hour. Top speed is around 110 miles an hour, even though in the early 80s, cars were mandated to have 85 mile an hour speedometer clusters. As far as fuel economy, with a 13.5 gallon tank and premium unleaded fuel, expect average ratings to be around 19.5 miles to a gallon. As I mentioned, thanks to the counterweights and support, the large gull-wing doors open almost effortlessly and reveal an upscale cabin completely bathed in leather. For a car that went from concept to production in such little time, and taking into consideration engineering delays and construction, build quality feels quite good. Everything has a nice soft touch to it with tuft and stitched accent everywhere you look. The interior was actually designed to swallow tall individuals. With roof cutouts and low-mounted seats, John DeLorean, who is 6'4" himself, could sit comfortably. For shorter people, door pull straps were added so you could reach the doors easier in closing. The seats feature basic manual adjustment including your recline and sliding functions. There's not a whole lot of lateral support, but it does feature a nice amount of padding across the sides and the lower bolsters. The headrests are also fixed and nicely detailed with the unique stitching coming down the middle portion of the seats. As you come across the threshold, you can see the exposed GRP body, DMC logo, handbrake next to the driver's seat, as well as logoed floor mats, and a telescoping steering wheel. The dash is also completely padded with the tufted accents coming across the middle of the portion and just soft touch material as you go across the dash and especially the speedometer binnacle. Now what's cool is that many of these parts are actually still available and especially new old stock, so if you mod your DeLorean you can actually upgrade the speedometer cluster to read a higher speed layout.
So let's go ahead and see how she sounds. So we're going to shut her up. Now the DeLorean comes standard with an AM/FM radio with built-in tape deck from the factory, but this particular one's been fixed with a more modern updated in-dash CD player. Now I'll pull the gear shift lever back, show you the climate controls a little bit more in depth. They're really simple to use. Your temperature off to the left, fan speed off to the right, as well as your different zone adjustments in the middle. Now all of these icons over here correspond to the words off to the left. So for example, Max AC corresponds with the blue icon. Normal, the other one. Bi-level vent, heater, and defrost. Kind of quirky, but definitely unique. Your rear defrost is located in the little switch panel here. As we come down the stitched leather accented center console, the unique stitching and padding trails all the way back into the center console, where you have a padded armrest here with an ashtray, but there's no center console for extra storage except for that little storage tray back there. The central control panel right here that you saw earlier has your defrost as well as your power mirrors. These are dummy switches right here, but this one controls the flux capacitor. Overall, it's a rather quiet vehicle. Padding across the dash. Visors, also lined in padded material and felt. And a manually dimming rearview mirror. You also have a set of reading lamps located in the top. Alrighty. And we're going to shut her down. So let's check out behind the seat. To gain access to the storage behind the seat, pull up on the little lever on the side, and you actually have an ample amount of space back there. Enough for at least a couple items. And we're going to check out the rest of the vehicle, shall we? So we're going to pop the boot.
Opening the lid reveals a very modest 4 cubic feet in a shallow but wide storage compartment, plenty for just a few pieces of baggage. There's also some carpeted portions located down below, as well as up top with some illumination. You can see also up top where the gas flap used to be on earlier cars, where now it's just hidden underneath the boot lid for a more streamlined look.
The passenger seat is also manually adjusting, just like you would find on the driver's seat. This soft padded material comes across the passenger side portion of the dash, and you have a little glove box, also illuminated up top.
The DeLorean DMC-12 is not only one of the most famous movie cars out there, but arguably one of the most iconic cars of the 1980s. With an incredible story from inception to production, it only adds to the interest. With styling unlike anything else, plenty of room and possibility for upgrades, it's no wonder why the DMC-12 has become a sheer cult classic with the avid DeLorean enthusiast.
Well everyone, I hope you enjoyed this detailed look at the DeLorean DMC-12. Be sure to stay tuned next time, there's a lot more where that came from. Take care everybody.